Good day, everyone. We are the Group 2, and today we're going to talk about the portability and disability benefits. The content of our report is first, the portability under RA number 7699. Second is disability and death benefits. Labor Code under Article 198 and POEA Standard Employment Contract under Section 32 and Rule on Referral to Third Doctor. And lastly, the Labor Advisory number 19, Mental Health Policy in the Workplace. So let's start with portability under RA number 7699. Definition of terms or concepts. First is portability. Portability means that a worker's contribution to SSS and GSIS can be added together or pwedeng pagsamahin to quantify for retirement, disability, or death benefits. This is helpful when a worker has worked in both a private and government sectors during their lifetimes. An example for this is a teacher worked for 10 years in DepEd, which is covered by GSIS, and then moved to the private sector for 5 years, na covered naman ng SSS. Her 10 years in GSIS and 5 years in SSS ay pwedeng pagsamahin to meet the required 15 years of service to quantify for pension. Next is totalization. Totalization means adding together all periods of service or contributions under SSS and GSIS to help the worker quantify for benefits like retirement or disability, even if the contributions are not enough under just one system. So, in simple words, dahil hindi qualify yung period of service or contribution niya sa isang system, either SSS or GSIS, pagsasamahin yung taon ng contribution niya sa SSS at GSIS para ma-meet yung qualified periods for benefits. So, take note that it is important that totalization only applies if the worker doesn't qualify under SSS alone or GSIS alone. So, para lang ito doon sa mga kulang ang contribution. If the workers already qualifies in one system, totalization is not used unless it increases the benefits amount. Mamaya may papaliwanag ito ng mas mabuti. So, example for this is a worker has only 8 years in SSS and 7 years in GSIS. Kaya dito, hindi enough yung SSS lang or GSIS lang. But if you add them or the what you call totalization, that makes 15 years. So, the workers are now qualifies. Next is transfers of funds. There is no transfer of funds between SSS and GSIS. Ibig sabihin, each system will only pay its share of the benefit based on how much the worker paid into it. And next is proportional benefit or proportional payment. When a worker qualifies under both system and totalization is applied, the benefits will be split. So, ito yung sinasabi kanina sa important of totalization na unless it increases the benefit amount, each system, the SSS and GSIS, will only pay the portion that matches the years or amount of contributions made to it. So, for example, a worker has 5 years in SSS and 10 years in GSIS, in a total of 15 years. Since GSIS is 2/3 of the total service, GSIS will pay 2/3 of the pension. and SSS will pay 1/3 of the pension. Lastly is creditable service or contributions. These are the number of years and month that a worker has paid into either SSS or GSIS. Only these are counted for totalization and computation of benefits. So what are the general rule and exception for this? So the general rule is if a worker has worked in both private and government jobs, they can combine their SSS and GSIS contributions to qualify for benefits. Both agencies will pay a portion based on how much was contributed to each. So maghahati si SSS and GSIS para sa iyong benefits. And for the exemptions, first is you cannot use refunded contribution or the money you already got back. In simple words, kapag kinuha mo na yung pera mo or contribution from SSS or GSIS, you cannot count that money anymore when computing your total number of years kasi kinuha mo na nga. Let's say for example, nagtrabaho ka in a private company at nagbayad ka sa SSS for 5 years. Later, nag-resign ka at nalipat bilang government employee which is covered by GSIS. Nag-ask ka sa SSS to return your money and that is called refund. Now, since you already got the SSS money, you cannot use those 5 years anymore for retirement or other benefits. Kung baga, nabura na yung 5 years from your record and they don't count that anymore. Next is, you cannot claim full pension from both systems for the same years of service. So, in simple words, hindi ka pwedeng mag-ask sa SSS at sa GSIS para bayaran yung full pension mo for same years that you work. That would be a double benefits and that is not allowed. For example, if you work 10 years in total, 6 years in SSS and 4 years in GSIS, you cannot say, I want full pension from SSS for 10 years and I want full pension from GSIS for 10 years. What happened instead is SSS will pay for the 6 years she contributed and GSIS will pay for 4 years she contributed. So, maghahati si SSS at GSIS sa pension mo. Si SSS will pay 60% of the total pension and GSIS will pay 40% of the total pension. So, together, they can make 100% of her retirement pension. But, it is shared, not doubled. And lastly, you cannot get benefits if you already receiving similar benefits from either SSS or GSIS. So, in simple words, kapag nakatanggap ka na ng retirement, disability or death benefits from either SSS or GSIS, hindi ka na pwedeng mag-apply ulit for the same kinds of benefits under the other system. So, for example nito is, you retired and already receiving a monthly pension from GSIS. So, hindi mo na pwedeng sabihin na gusto ko din makakuha ng pension from SSS. Bakit hindi pwedeng gawin iyon? Because it is the same kind of benefit and you can only get it once, even if you work under both systems. So, remember that the benefits from SSS and GSIS can still be shared or split, but you cannot double claim. For more examples, here is example number 1. A worker pays SSS for 8 years in private sector, then transfers to government work and pays GSIS for 7 years, with a total of 15 years. As a result, worker is qualifies for retirement because SSS pays 8 out of 15 and GSIS pays 7 out of 15 of the benefits. For example, number 2 is a government worker contributes to GSIS for 10 years, then works in private sector and pays SSS for 5 years, in a total of 15 years. So, as the result, worker can claim retirement benefits for both GSIS and SSS, each paying its shares. And these are the basic rights involved in portability. First is the right to get benefits. Workers can have the right to receive helps from SSS or GSIS when they get old, sick, disabled, or died. And next is right to combine contributions. If you work in both private or SSS and government, which is GSIS, you can add your payment from both. This helps you qualify for benefits, even if your time in each job is short or kulang. The third is the right to fair share from both. If you qualify for benefits, both SSS and GSIS will give you their part based on how much you paid them. This is called proportional payment, or yung nabanggit kanina doon sa meanings or concepts. The fourth is right to keep your contributions when changing jobs. If you move from a private job to a government job or the other way, your payment won't be waste. This is still count when you apply for benefits. The punishment for violation of rights or legal consequences for the employers. If the employer does not register the worker in SSS or GSIS or fails to record the worker's contributions, the employer will be held fully responsible for paying all the retirement, disability, or death benefits. The employer may also face legal punishment such as fines or even jail, depending on the seriousness of the violation. And if the employer refuses to coordinate with SSS or GSIS during benefits claim, they may face administrative penalties or warning, suspension, or fines from the government. And for the workers, if a worker tries to cheat the system, for example, faking documents or lying about service year just to get more benefits, the worker will be denied any benefits. The worker also may face legal action, like criminal case, and might go to jail or pay fines for fraud or misrepresentation. And lastly, the procedure. First is file the claim at SSS or GSIS depending on where the worker last contributed. Second is the agency will coordinate with the others or SSS and GSIS. And lastly, both agencies calculate their share and process the combined benefits. So that's all for the